Hello, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to This or That, a series where I pair up decks that feel a similar niche in my collection and decide which one's going to stay and which one's going to go. Oh my gosh. So I actually sat down to film this video a little bit ago before I realized that I hadn't done the community polls. Okay, if you're new to this series or to my channel, hi, welcome. I really like doing this series in a way where I am taking two decks that I feel like are filling the same sort of need or niche in my collection and trying to decide, do I need them both? Usually I come to this place because I realize I feel a little oversaturated in an area, or if I've had a recent experience, it's kind of made me realize I might prefer one over the other. But I want to take some time, pause, like just hit the pause button and think about that decision for a little bit. And then I like to take the process on camera and share it with you guys. So what I like to do before I film these is I like to put polls up in my community tab on my channel. If you don't know what the community tab is, if you go to my actual channel, there's a thing along the top that says community, and it kind of acts like a bit of a message board, and it lets me post polls. So I like to post polls to my subscribers asking you guys which one of the two decks that I am putting head to head you prefer. So not which one you think I should keep necessarily, but which one, I guess, if you had to make this decision, you would keep, or which one's your favorite, that sort of thing. Our first pairing today is going to be the Prisma Visions Tarot by James R. Eads next to the Light Visions Tarot by James R. Eads. So before I get into my thoughts on these, let me just pop the poll up so that you can see what you guys all voted. I really expected this to be a lot closer than it was, but I also do kind of understand because Prisma Visions has been out and I think a lot more well known and a lot more popular in a way than Light Visions has. These are essentially the same deck, but one is in full color and the other one is not. Now, I do have a bit of a story and a confession about this deck, which I have shared, I believe, in the past, question mark? I don't know if I did or not, actually. Essentially, I had this Prisma Visions Tarot some time ago and I traded it because I wasn't using it. And then I bought it again. Why? Why, you ask? Because when James was doing the Kickstarter for the Cosmo Visions Oracle, which I don't have here on the table in front of me, he mentioned that he was almost out of stock of whatever the current edition was of Prisma Visions, and that anybody who added Prisma Visions to their backing level, tier, whatever, would be getting the newest edition, which would be coming out in matte cardstock. And I wasn't sure, because it had been a while since I had the deck, if I wasn't working with it because it was glossy, because I do tend to work much more with my more matte cardstock decks. It's just, my dog just like pushed open the closet next to me and was like, I'm going in there now. Anyways, I do tend to work more with my matte decks. I think partly because I do a lot of things on camera, including my client readings. Anyways, I'm kind of off in La La Land. But because this one was the winner, I kind of wanted to talk through this one first. And in fact, let's actually zoom in and look a little bit closer at the artwork. But as you can see, it's really, really vibrant and beautiful. It does, though, have a specific kind of art style that can, in my opinion, make the art look a little bit noisy. I don't know what a better way to express it is. It is totally James's style. It's pretty. It's beautiful. But I noticed that I do have to kind of slow down with this deck and really think about what's happening in the cards. So, I had reversals in here because the guidebook has some reversals. Anyways, so that is the Prisma Visions Tarot. And I have to admit, I'm glad I have this back in my collection, although I still am not reaching for it nearly as much as I thought I was going to. But I also picked up at the same time, because it was just an add-on to my Kickstarter tier, the Light Visions, which is the same deck, but in a monochromatic theme. Why did I do that, you ask? I have no idea. I know myself. I feel like I know myself. And I know I don't tend to like monochromatic decks unless I'm like really, like I have to be really excited about a monochromatic deck to want to work with it. But I actually thought, and you can tell it's still in order, which is not a good sign. I actually thought in this particular case that the monochromaticness of it would actually make the art easier to see. I thought maybe the details would pop a little better on this monochromatic one, and maybe they do. But I find myself even less excited about reaching for this. And it's kind of this really pretty, like sort of plummy color. Look at this chariot. This is awesome. I do feel like, actually, if I'm being honest, in some of the images, I do feel like I see the details much better, but I miss the color. I just miss color. And I feel like having both of these is silly considering it's already kind of a deck that I'm not 1000% sure is my forever deck. And this version here is brand new because I've never really, I've never used it. Nor did I ever really feel compelled to, I don't think I even made a video about these two, and I had planned to. I didn't. So I didn't. So I'm pretty sure that the Light Visions Tarot is going to go. I don't want to let go of the Prisma Visions. I do think I want to keep this one for now. I think there is a chance it could move out of my collection in the future, but I really want to spend more time with it, and I love this Hermit card. And there are some cards in here I really love. I think part of my problem when I was working with this deck is that I was also working with the Cosmovisions Tarot or Cosmovisions Oracle, and I had a hard time focusing. I want to give this one another go, so I'm going to hold off for now. I did try to work with the reverse meanings that were in the really big, beautiful book that came with the Kickstarter copy of Cosmovisions Tarot. I really want to fix all these reversals, but not now, Lisa. We can do it later. We can do it later. Put it away. So for now, my decision is I'm going to keep the Prisma Visions, and I'm going to rehome the Light Visions. This next pairing definitely caused a stir among my subscribers. I'm going to pop the poll up here in just a second. We're going to be talking about the Baba Studios Alice Tarot and Dame Darcy's Queen Alice Tarot. Okay, so I'm going to pop up the poll. As you can see, the Alice Tarot by Baba Studios got a lot higher of a vote, coming in at 62% over the Queen Alice at 38%. So let me talk about the Baba Studios Alice Tarot first. So I want to preface this by saying I have both of these. Both of these decks, in my opinion, are obviously filling the same niche because they're both Alice Tarot. And normally that wouldn't bug me. In fact, I was actually kind of excited to have multiple Alice decks. I think Alice is a really wonderful theme for working with the tarot. Here's my problem, I think. I've had the Alice Tarot longer. So let me show you some of the images and kind of talk through where I'm at. Now, I do also have a bigger guidebook to go with this deck. Now, this Baba Studios version is out of print. This is the second edition. I wonder if it says, yeah, this does say on the box. It's the second edition. I love this edition and this version of an Alice Tarot. And I spent quite a bit of time with this deck, and I feel like I've bonded with this deck. And there's things about the guidebook that really take me over the edge. In fact, one of my favorite things about the guidebook, I also love the way the images pop out of the borders. It just makes the deck feel very three-dimensional in this really cool way. And the cold foil stamping, the metallic accents on this deck are really beautiful, and they're well done in a way that just, it just brings a deck to life. I really, really, really love this deck. I think the issue for me isn't that the Queen Alice, which we'll talk about here too, isn't also an amazing Alice deck, but I did originally, I don't know if it was that I anti-hauled the Queen Alice or if I just picked something else in a say yes to the deck, but I definitely talked myself out of this deck. It did come into my collection through as a gift, which was super sweet, and I have really enjoyed taking some time getting to know this deck. I really thought I was going to love it. Now, I do really love my Dame Darcy Mermaid Tarot, but this one has, it's still got a really great box, but this one does have a slightly different cardstock. So the cardstock on the Queen Alice Tarot is glossy, and the cardstock on the Mermaid Tarot is beautiful, matte, and thick. This one's also gilded, and I guess the Mermaid Tarot is also gilded. Anyways, so I already do have some difficulty with glossy decks. You guys, I wanted to love this deck so bad. In fact, I even followed these instructions to try to print out a little guidebook, and that didn't do it for me. I do think the issue is that this deck and the Baba Studios deck do both feel like they represent the book Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. They feel like they represent the books, not the movies, which is what I wanted. But they each kind of have a very, very unique style with a super unique perspective. And I feel like if I had bonded with either one of these first, it would have been the one. I feel like if the Dame Darcy Alice Tarot had come into my life first, then I would be having this exact same conversation about the Baba Studios Alice Tarot, and I don't think I'd be keeping this one. Because I bonded with the Baba Studios Alice Tarot first, I don't think this one and I are meant to be. I did try working with it several times, but specifically I tried to actually give it a month, and I didn't get even partway into the month before I realized I just am not excited about playing with this deck. I don't know why. Like I said, I do enjoy the art style. I enjoy the quirk. I think the art style actually fits the stories really, really well. It's just that I've already bonded with this one. So in my mind, when I think, oh, I want to work with an Alice tarot, I always think of my Baba Studios deck. So I realized that this one deserves to go on to another more loving home at some point. Now, if you're new to any of my sort of decluttering things, I would like to point out that when I decide that it's how fitting that the Ten of Swords is on the top. I do like to put these away in essentially a purgatory drawer where I let them sit for a while and make sure I'm actually ready to let them go. So yeah, I will be taking my time because I don't want to be too hasty where this is concerned, but I'm pretty sure that this is my Alice Tarot, and it's actually the reason I haven't picked up the Wonderland Tarot, which is a Llewellyn Alice in Wonderland themed deck, nor am I interested in the upcoming Disney Alice Tarot. So at least I think that's the case. We'll see. We'll see when that one comes out, but I'm pretty sure. In any case, I do really love this deck, and this was one of the decks that Peggy and I found some fabric for really early in the days of her shop. In fact, you can tell how early it is because there's no decorative stitching on this bag. This was before she did that, and we had colored cords and everything. So this, I've had this deck and the little bag that goes with it for like a really long time, and it's like my quintessential little Alice set, and I love it so much. So yeah, not going anywhere. This one for sure is staying, and I'm pretty sure that the Queen Alice will be going. So our next pairing is an Oracle deck pairing. So we're going to be talking about the Witches of Legend Oracle deck, and that is by Annabelle Lewis. And the Legendary Ladies Oracle deck, and this one is by Anne Shen. So before I get into my thoughts on these, I'm going to pop the poll up on the screen. So as you can see, this one was a lot closer, and actually Witches of Legend eked out just in front of Legendary Ladies. There is more to both of these decks and more to the story, but they do both have other books and things, so we're going to be talking about those as well. Now, because the Witches of Legend sort of won, I'm going to talk about this one first. But before I do, let's tell you why these are in the same category and also why I don't want a lot in this category. So these are both sort of Divine Feminine decks. Here's the thing. I very rarely work with Divine Feminine Oracle decks because I have one specific goddess oracle that I've been working with for a really long time that I'm pretty bonded to. I've talked about it a lot on the channel, but it is the Goddess Oracle by Hrana Janto and Sofia Marashinsky, and that is my quintessential goddess deck. So it takes a lot for me to even want to add a goddessy style oracle deck into my collection. Legendary, well, we'll talk about this in a second. Witches of Legend was gifted to me. And I have to tell you, it really surprised me because it didn't feel like other goddess decks or Divine Feminine decks. It felt unique. And part of, I think, what makes this deck feel so unique is its intensity. It feels like it has a lot of empowerment and depth and a little bit of darkness in it, whereas it really stands out from my other goddess oracle. It feels like a wholly different tool. And I really was blown away by it. And in fact, I was really, really touched by the way the guidebooks were written. And this goddess in particular, Akalandeshvari, the Never Not Broken. I have a print of this that was also generously sent to me, and I love it. Love it. I've actually got it mounted next to me high up on the wall where I can see her. And her message is really meaningful. But I really enjoy the combination of characters in this deck. It's kind of a little bit irreverent in a really cool way, I feel like, by including not only known Divine Feminine figures, but also like story figures, right? We have Maleficent in here, and we have, who's another one that I know is more, there's a couple in here, just a general sort of sea witch, which is a very Ursula vibe. I really, really enjoy the vibe of this deck. It's kind of a small, compact number of cards, but it feels like it brings a more shadow and more intensity in a really beautiful, powerful way. And I thought it really stood out. So when I got this, I immediately thought of my Legendary Ladies, and not necessarily in a good way, but I'll tell you, I really do love this deck for what it is. Okay, let me talk this through, because I'm actually not sure if I'm ready to let this go or not, but I am leaning in the direction of Witches of Legend. So here's the thing with Legendary Ladies. I anti-hauled this deck. I was like, I don't need it. But this art style is so me. And yet, I have not felt drawn to work with this deck at all, except when pairing it with the Tarot of the Divine, which is a kind of fairy tale themed tarot deck that's really gorgeous. I feel like this would actually pair with several things really nicely. The problem is that this deck doesn't give me that sense of like goosebumpy richness and depth. I'm not saying it's not here, but I've never connected to it in that way. And I think that may be partly because of the art style, because as much as this deck is right up my alley from a art style perspective, it feels like it's lacking the intensity and the seriousness that I feel like represents the way that I have felt about working with the Divine Feminine. And so there's just something that feels a little too cute. And this just feels like it stays only at that shallow place for me personally. I'm not saying the deck is shallow or that the creator made a shallow deck. Not at all. There's actually a lot to this. It comes with this really great little white book that has information about the cards. And then it also, you can get this separate gorgeous, gorgeous book that has full pages of artwork and a little bit more about each of these characters or representations of the Divine Feminine. I mean, this is a beautiful, beautiful set. I ended up getting this one actually in a trade. Otherwise, I don't think I would have ended up with it because I believe I had anti-hauled this one for sure. So I'm like 99. Yeah, I think I am sure. I think I just needed to sort of verbalize what I was thinking, but I'm going to be letting Legendary Ladies Goddess deck go, and I'm going to be keeping the Witches of Legend. This one just feels so unique that I feel like it slides into what I have now and doesn't compete with anything. Whereas I do feel like this feels like I would reach for this or my Goddess Oracle, so there's automatically competition. I think that's kind of what I'm thinking. So anyways, Legendary Ladies is going to go, and Witches of Legend is going to stay. So far I'm keeping one and ditching one. It doesn't always go that way, so we'll see how the rest of these pairings go. So our next pairing is a watery, oceany pairing, and it kind of gives me feelings because I never thought I would consider letting either one of these go, but I have feelings. Okay, so this is going to be the pairing of the Oracle of the Mermaids, which has backings that look like this. I forgot to grab its little guidebook. And the Whispers of the Ocean Oracle deck. So I'm going to put your guys's poll up on the screen. And this one was a clear winner for Whispers of the Ocean, which I was not expecting. I actually thought that this Messages from the Mermaids would win hands down in this side-by-side. Okay, so the winner of this one was Whispers of the Ocean. So let me talk about that one first. Now, I haven't actually worked with this deck much at all yet. But there's a few things that really have made this one feel super unique to me. It's ocean themed. It's not mermaid themed, but they do both have that very oceany underwater kind of vibe. This one feels so realistic, but in a really gorgeous way. I will say that one of the things I'm super fond of in this deck, besides the gorgeous cardstock, Blue Angel's just been doing some incredible things with their cardstock. But besides that, what I really love is that we have a title, and the title feels fairly expansive. Mutually beneficial venture, clearing the excess. I could work with just those. But then we single-mindedness. But we also have a message. And that just makes this just feel and seem like it's going to just be an easy breezy deck to work with. Love this polite declaration. This is the cutest dang card. I think I also like that because it's ocean themed, I feel like I could pair it with any oceany themed or feeling deck without feeling like there's a disjointedness. And I do work with my Oracle decks often in pairings. So the fact that I feel like I could pair this next to my Dame Darcy Mermaid Tarot, but I also feel like there's two crowd-funded oceany decks that I've backed recently, and I feel like this could go next to either one of those as well. There's nothing dissonant about it in that way. So I don't know. This one feels like it's going to be really, really versatile, and so far I've really enjoyed the playing with it that I have done, and it makes me feel like I'm literally scuba diving and seeing these creatures. It's just very immersive, and I love that. Now, the Oracle of the Mermaids, I have raved about this deck, and I've actually really enjoyed working with it, but here's the thing. And I'm going to blame / thank Dawn Michelle Boho Tarot because she did a month on her channel all about mermaids, and she spoke about working with this deck and also about working with this one. And I think what she ended up talking about her experiences with this deck, and if I can remember which video, I will link it down below. At the very least, I will link Dawn Michelle's channel, so make sure if you're not already subscribed to her, go check it out. She has a video, though, talking about her experience with this deck and kind of, I think, articulating a lot of the thing I felt about this. I gushed about this deck and I loved looking at it. I think the thing I got excited about with this deck the most is the diversity. There's a lot of body diversity and racial diversity, and I've never seen mermaids this way. But I found that where it fell flat for me was in the keywords and the artwork didn't give me a feeling the same way, or at least not once I got started really trying to work with it. And so it started to fall a little bit flat, but I didn't really know why. And so I kept kind of working with it and playing with it. And for a time, I actually had this on an ocean altar and worked with it there. And even there, it felt like it just didn't give me the depth I was looking for. It didn't let me connect to what it was I was trying to connect with. I think this is one of those harder to define things where I feel like there's something about the keywords not quite landing the way I want them to, or there's something about the messages that aren't quite kind of coming through. And this is where I think sometimes I benefit from decks that have this sort of like title with like smaller words underneath or messages, because I feel like there's even more for me to grab onto as far as a message. So between these two, this one feels much more usable. But this is my only mermaid oracle. So like, am I ready to maybe let her go? The other thing is I find that I don't really want to pair this with my mermaid tarot, because they have a very different art style. So they actually don't feel like they pair up well. And that's the one situation where I'd want to be able to pair this. I wish I could describe it, because I think the art on this deck is just stunning. I think depending on how you use oracles, this might be exactly the right thing for you. I think this one is one that I'm going to be letting go, but gosh darn it, those backs are so pretty. Oh, what am I doing? Okay, I'm still going to think about it for a bit, because it's going to be in purgatory, but I think I am going to be letting that one go and keeping my Whispers of the Ocean Oracle. Plus, look at these backs with these sea turtles. Aren't they so pretty? So pretty. Okay, keeping that one. We're just kind of cruising. Okay, I think we've only got one pairing left. And this was definitely, I would say, of all of the polls that I put up, I feel like this one was probably the absolutely most back and forth on which deck was like sort of eking out ahead of the other one. But this is going to be a discussion of the Green Witch Tarot and the Witch's Wisdom Tarot. Okay. Now, I should preface this, well, before I get into my thoughts, let me pop up the poll. So currently at the time I'm filming it, and I wouldn't be surprised if this one changed again. Currently at the time I'm filming it, the Green Witch Tarot is ahead of the Witch's Wisdom Tarot. There are a lot of differences between these two decks, and there are definitely benefits and drawbacks of each. Let me talk about the Green Witch Tarot, since this one was the winner of the poll. So this is a Llewellyn deck, and it comes with a guidebook, obviously, like a big, beautiful, gorgeous guidebook that is I did bring it. I was going to say I should show you. So it's one of these style guidebooks. This is before Llewellyn was doing the full color guidebook, so it is in black and white. This deck came about because Peggy and I were talking to somebody in Helping You Say Yes to the Deck who was actually a couple people I feel like talked about this deck. Oh yes. So Kelly has this deck and raved about it. And in the same episode, actually, Ellie, who was another one of our guests, was considering whether or not to get this deck. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And so between the two of them, I felt like I got a little glimpse at a deck that this deck's been out for a while. Like, I feel like, when was this originally published? This is the 6th printing that I have here, and the 9th edition, and this was originally printed in 2015. So this has been out like for a hot minute, right? But I just never picked it up. I never really gave it a lot of attention. But the thing about the Green Witch Tarot that I think is really special is that in the guidebook, you'll learn that in every single card there is, and Kelly spoke about this during her episode, but there is an animal, like an animal guide that is there and chosen for its associations with that card. And there's also a plant. And I think that's really, really cool. It adds a lot of depth to the deck. And I was I just kind of was wowed by it, and I had a store credit. So for my birthday, I ended up picking up a copy of this so I could see it for myself. What I noticed, and I think the thing that I was really drawn to about this deck, is just how kind of Wicca-y it felt in a beautiful way. Like how very witchy, but in that kind of old school, like it reminded me of my past in Wicca, I guess is the best way to say it. And I just thought it brought back a lot of those feelings. But when I went to work with it, every time I pulled a card, I was like, meh. And I was like, I don't know if it was my mood that day. I don't know what it was. And then I started thinking about other decks that I've had that have given me that really lovely, witchy, kind of leaning Wicca-y kind of feel. And I realized that the Witch's Wisdom Tarot is the deck that gives me that feeling. It makes me feel, but there's a difference, and so I'm going to talk about that difference. But the Witch's Wisdom Tarot, which is by Phyllis Curott, and Danielle Barlow is the artist, and it comes with this beautiful guidebook. No pictures in here, but I've read I've read this book cover to cover, and in fact, This deck, in theory, should have lost this battle, and I don't think it's going to, and I'll tell you why. Because the Major Arcana has been reordered, essentially backwards. So in this deck, we've changed, or the creators have changed the tarot system. But the way that it's been changed literally feels like it meets me where I'm at in my life right now. I feel like if I was making this decision 10 years ago, even 15 years ago, when I was a little bit younger and at a different place in my personal life, this would have definitely been the deck that was right for me. But I feel like, given my particular set of life experiences, this idea of the Witch's Wisdom Tarot, it just feels like this goes a little bit deeper. Not to say this isn't deep, but this feels like it goes to a place of healing, of unpacking, of sort of unlearning and then relearning. It feels like it offers this connection to earth-based spirituality, but it steps just a little to one side of more traditional Wicca. There are so many things that I love about working with this deck, and I think partly it helps that I have spent the time to read the book cover to cover and to really get to know it and to understand, I think, the intention behind it and the messages behind every card. I love this so much that and as soon as I kind of realized that the Witch's Wisdom, not the Witch's Wisdom, that the Green Witch Tarot was kind of touching the same place in me, I realized that if given the choice, I would always reach for Witch's Wisdom before I would reach for this one. And so this one has come into my collection and is leaving probably just as quickly. But I'm so glad that I took the time to kind of get to know it. And it was a really nice use of that store credit to try a deck that I was pretty sure before that I didn't want, but that I was curious about. And so I got to kind of try it, play with it, see how it worked, and now I'm deciding to go ahead and move it into Purgatory. So actually, let's do a little recap. So I'm going to be keeping the Witch's Wisdom Tarot, the Whispers of the Ocean Oracle, the Baba Studios Alice Tarot, the Witches of Legend Oracle, let's put that down here, and for now anyway, the Prisma Visions Tarot. I suspect this one could end up going in a future declutter, but I want to wait quite a while before I revisit it. I want to give it some time to sit in my collection and see how much I actually want to reach for it after a much longer period of time. So this is what I'm keeping. So I did split it evenly this time, and often on this or that, I end up keeping two, or I end up decluttering two. But I really feel good about these decisions. I feel like these are decks that definitely have more to give in my collection. And yeah, I'm pretty happy about that. And then the decks that are going to be going into Purgatory is the Messages from the Mermaids Oracle, the Legendary Ladies Oracle, the Queen Alice Tarot, the Light Visions Tarot, and the Green Witch Tarot. And I'm really sorry if you, and I think this is worth saying, if you love any of these decks, whether it's the ones that I'm keeping or the ones that I'm letting go, if you love any of these, please keep loving them. I don't want anybody to be discouraged from loving what they love. That's not why I do this. I do this because it's really good and helpful for me when I start to feel like I have just a little bit too much, to check in and see, do I have things that are sort of filling the same need for me? And when that happens, to sort of evaluate and pull out some of that excess. And this is a really nice way for me to be able to do that in a way that kind of feels organic and natural and gives me some time to really sit and think about it. Having the chance to ask you guys what you think gives me an extra little bit of time to play with what I think. And it's kind of interesting to see those conversations happening in the comments and to kind of see why you might like one over the other. And I don't do that to influence me one way or another, but because I'm genuinely curious what other people think. And yeah, I think these are all fantastic decks. I obviously thought they were good enough to purchase or bring into my collection in some way in the first place. And in all of these cases, I feel like, except for the Prisma Visions, all of the rest of these decks that I have decided this is staying. I'm just playing with my pile. But all the decks that I've decided to keep, they're all decks that I enjoy working with. And all the ones that I've decided to let go of, I've worked with them all except for Light Visions. Anyways, as I was saying, all of these have had something to show me, share with me, or teach me during the time that I have worked with them, and I don't regret my time with any of these decks at all. Sometimes it's just a learning experience to try something out and figure out if it's going to stay over the long term or be more of a short-term little fling, which I think a lot of these ended up being. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. As always, I really enjoy sharing this process with you guys. Thank you again for spending your time here on this channel. It means so much. As always, please do remember to click the like button if you enjoyed this video or you found value in it. Subscribe if you're new here and want to see more videos about curation, collection, decks, reading tarot, learning tarot. I'm kind of a tarot nerd, in case you didn't notice. And if you want more videos about all things tarot and oracle, stick around here because we do a lot of that in this space. And don't forget to click the little notification bell so you are notified of all my future videos and live streams. Thank you again so much, and may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye, guys.